Pakistan and other ministries that coordinate here. And on the basis of that, they have assumed a certain number for the demand of power to grow, which has been absolutely unrealistic. Along with that came a time when COVID played a very dampening role in the increase in the demand for power in Pakistan. And instead of growing now in the past 2 and 3 years, the demand for power has been reducing, the demand for power on the grid. That's because of off-grid solutions and the availability of facilities like the solar net metering connections that we've given. Over 350,000 people now avail that, and we have about close to 6,000 megawatts of installed solar power on the grid. Some of it has been approved, the other is about to get approved, and the trend is upwards. So whatever we have assumed in the IGSEP, which was an exercise that used to be done before, but it was for the first time that we tried to do an extensive exercise, and we took into consideration and the input from different ministries, from WAPDA and the IPPs, and everybody was given enough of an audience as part of the IGSEP for us to try to come up with an IGSEP that still needs to go through the regulatory process. And we've had that approved by the Prime Minister. The IGSEP has actually, the one that we've approved so far, has resulted in the termination of close to 9,000 megawatts of power that we were going to buy in the next few years. So what we're trying to do is trying to get the government of Pakistan out of the business of buying any more power in the future, other than the plants that we have already committed to. And those plants were allowed to remain in the system in terms of buying power from them in the future, whichever had already assumed a financial closure or the amount of work done on them had reached a certain percentage. We have assumed the induction of the Bhasha Dam electricity project, which is supposed to come online, the electricity part of it now, according to the IGSEP, in the year 2032. But unfortunately, we don't see any visibility of any financing available for the electricity part of the dam. So I don't know if that is going to actually happen or not. Whether it happens or not, if it doesn't happen, the electricity part, the water storage is absolutely critical and important for Pakistan. But if it happens or not, the electricity part, I think if it does not happen, we might be better off. But if it happens, it's going to be on the basis of a least cost violation price, if there is any, so that the extra burden of it does not come on to the consumers of Pakistan. And we are trying to implement an environment and put into place an environment where the consumers stop suffering any irrational planning that the government does in the future. So, being within the discipline of competitive power being brought onto the grid and least cost violations being paid for any strategic projects, we are wanting to move ahead and make sure that the consumer is not burdened by anything of the sort. When you talk of transition, energy transition, for me it's not just the generation part. We are in transition in so many ways, not just the generation. The transmission system of Pakistan itself is under serious transition. The distribution sector is. We're going through a privatization process. We have regulatory issues. You would have heard what we had to say yesterday about a recent determination by the regulator on the Karachi electric multi-yearly tariff. So we are evolving, and as we go through the privatization process, the distribution companies would also have to firm up their plans to make this transition absolutely painless for the consumers. In the meantime, there is a huge amount of political pressure on us to just keep allowing the solar net metering systems to come onto the grid. The grid is not transparent. We don't have complete visibility of the grid. We don't have technology to know and to tell us and to help us plan what kind of load there is on our transformers, on our feeders, on our grids, what kind of challenges, which there are for sure. The solar distributed induction into the grid is going to cause us. We don't have any information, we don't have visibility of what's happening on the single phase meter side. There is no technology available as far as meterization is concerned. In the next 2 years, we are expected to reach 3.5 million meters out of 33 million, which would be smart meters for us to be able to assess what's going on the grid. That's totally unaffordable. We need to bring into place, and we have already started working on an indigenization and interoperability based meterization program, for which the public-private partnership model would be assumed by the end of next month, and we'll be going and seeking investment on this side so that all the distribution companies are transparent enough and we have a good enough amount of data and information flowing into the planning part of the grid and the distribution companies. Base load requirement, I think Pakistan is always going to have, every country has a base load requirement, and unless technology improves to a point which the experts say it is expected to, in terms of battery storage at the household level, at the utility level, unless that happens and that becomes feasible enough, in the future, we still would have at least in Pakistan, gas and coal-based plants. We are wanting to produce this power on coal and gas in a very responsible manner, making sure that the environmental hazard is absolutely minimum or is not there, and it is environmentally efficient enough for Pakistan to afford. Pakistan is hardly a contributor to this horrible climate change environment that the world is seeing today. In fact, we are on the receiving end. Pakistan has seen a lot of disaster for the people of this country in terms of floods and climate change effects that Pakistan has seen in the past few years. So the fossil fuel part of it is going to remain there. I hope it actually minimizes as we go along. But Pakistan isn't a very rich country, and we are going to look at the economics of it all also. So if it makes sense to go renewables all the way, we'll go renewables all the way. But we'll also have to keep in balance the advantages and disadvantages economically that Pakistan and its industry and consumers would have to face. Pakistan is quite clean, by the way. We're not we might be, you actually mentioned on one of the pamphlets the figures of solar and wind, but as far as clean energy is concerned, we're over 50%, I guess. So nuclear, hydro, solar, wind, and the amount of on-grid and off-grid solar energy that Pakistan is producing and substituting the fossil fuel part of the energy, I think our country should be actually proud of itself. But we want to make sure that we remain out there. At the same time, the energy transition, the cost of power, these are not the only issues. I think I would urge SERP to also closely work with us to see what the entire integrated energy plan should be looking like. There is no integrated energy planning in Pakistan right now. So the petroleum sector is working in isolation and the power sector is doing the same. I have spoken to the petroleum minister in the recent past, And we have decided to work closely together to try to put in place an environment where the integrated energy plan is actually authored by Pakistan, and it's an ongoing process. And it's a ever-evolving exercise. For that, there has to be a lot of real, credible, verified data available for the integrated energy plan to actually be effective and relevant enough. So the transportation sector, all the way down to the provinces, whatever the consumption trends are for all energy resource being spent in the country, that is much required. We did try to make an effort a few years ago through the planning division. There is a particular department out there. It's a project-based department. It doesn't have security of life for the department itself. It's based on a project in which certain tools like time are being used, but there isn't anybody who's trained on those tools. So the tools are there, but there aren't people who should be able to use that. And then all the data being put into those tools to come up with certain conclusions, that's not available. So a lot of work needs to be done on the integrated energy plan, and I'd like to urge Mr. Maroof to see if SERP could play a role along with the petroleum division and us. We're also, unfortunately, we're in this program with the IMF, and sometimes it seems as if we are not just being able to put across a certain point to them. So I'll just give you an example. There is 7,000 megawatts of surplus power available today on the grid. We have clear visibility of it for the next 3 years. We know that if the industry, the entire industry, not just the ones seeking renewable energy, but if the entire industry grows at 25% annually, we'll still have enough power in the next 3 years to be able to supply them with power on the grid. And the availability of this power, the surplus power on the grid, can be made at about 7 cents per kilowatt hour. That's absolutely competitive in the region. So any incremental power that the industry or the agriculture sector, which are the productive ones, if they use that, they can get power at 7 cents. There are no subsidy impacts to it. There is no cross-subsidy involved in it. Nothing in conflict with the framework that we've signed with the IMF, but we're not allowed to do that. We're trying to still convince them to be able to give us enough space within the framework to be making this energy available for the industrial growth to take place and for our industry to be competitive enough. The new tariff policy is expected to be announced in the near future by the Prime Minister, in which our industry might go through a little bit of pain in the next few years, but they'll have to tighten their belts and get themselves in order to be able to compete and get their exports to go up. But in the meantime, if we have such energy available and power available, we need to make it accessible by the users. So we have these kinds of issues too. In the past few months, we've also been able to close down close to 3,000 megawatts of furnace oil-based plants in Pakistan. Nobody's given us the credit for it. Nobody in the international community or the green financing people have come and patted us on the back. Even just a few words of encouragement, leave alone making their great amounts of billions of the dollars available to us for this transition, or to encourage us to further push us towards renewables here in this country. That's been a lacking on our part much more than theirs, because we don't have in place institutional ways to get access to this green financing. I never gave them a proposal, so that's a weakness on my part. But the creation of PPMC, an organization, the technical arm of the ministry. One of the key areas in which they'll have expertise would be the green access to green financing and making sure that Pakistan can bid for all this resource available in the international arena. So hopefully within the next couple of months we should be equipped enough, and we'd like to urge a stronger relationship, sir, with you and SERB to try to see if we can exploit the availability of such funds in the future. The IGSEP itself, we still haven't refined it to a point where I could be actually content enough. The availability of verified and properly certified data could be improved in the future. IGSEP is a plan that uses black sauce and a lot of data going into it to come up with a plan based on our transmission constraints and the entire transmission expansion plan. It basically comes up and gives visibility to us to try to minimize the power purchase price that the country is going to pay over the next few years. And this is an ever evolving thing. So every year a new IGSEP has to be submitted to the regulator. So we would like to work with SERB closer together so that every year our processes are further refined and we move towards a stage where we can really trust and rely on our planning process a lot more than we do trust it at the moment. So with these words, I'd like to thank SERB and the experts who are here this morning to give in their recommendations, and I'd like to urge SERB to please do share with us in the Power Division the conclusion of the workshop that you're having for 2 days. We'd love to get educated and guided by organizations like yourself. And it's been a wish of mine that we institutionalize this relationship between the Power Division and yourselves. And I would now, since PPMC is in place, that's the right forum to now formalize our relationship with you. And we'll have to work together to try to get the power sector to stand on its feet. By the way, I have some good news that last year the Power Division had asked for 1,267 billion rupees, that's over 1.2 trillion rupees in the subsidies for the power sector. This year, we've just asked for, we asked for 230 billion rupees less. We have already brought in an efficiency of over 120 billion rupees on the distribution companies. So we've made 120 billion rupees less loss than we did last year. The entire amount of losses was about 600 billion rupees last year. And if we stay on track in the next 3 to 4 years, these inefficiencies should be close to zero. But we're still having some political issues with allies, and 2 of the distribution companies I was not able to change the boards for, and they've increased and go on towards solar energy in the province of Balochistan, where they just were not paying us for the electricity that they were consuming. So we thought the Prime Minister launched a program, and we've already disconnected over 14,000 of those. So in the next 2 to 3 months, all these 27,000 tube wells will be off grid, hopefully reducing our losses by over 60 billion rupees a year. And that's with an investment of about 55 billion rupees that we paid them as subsidies to transition towards solar energy. In the end, I would like to mention that it's a tough sector. It's a horribly tough sector.
खिताब कर रहे थे। उन्होंने कहा कि 1 साल से हम तवानाई के सेक्टर में तहकीक और मुख्तलिफ चीज़ों का तजिया कर रहे हैं। इसके साथ साथ IP से मुआहिदों पर भी नज़रसानी की जा रही है। बिजली की कीमतों में वाज़ेह कमी की गई है। 2-3 साल से बिजली की तलब में कमी आई है। उन्होंने कहा कि शमसी तवानाई की पैदावार में खासा इजाफा हुआ है। इसके साथ साथ 3 सालों में ग्रिड से फराहम करने के लिए बिजली वाफर जो है वो मौजूद है। वफाकी वज़ीर तवानाई अवैस अहमद खान लगारी एनर्जी वर्कशॉप से खिताब कर रहे थे। उनका कहना था कि 1 साल से हम तवानाई के सेक्टर में तहकीक और मुख्तलिफ चीज़ों का तजिया कर रहे हैं। इसके साथ साथ IPP से जो मुआहिदे हैं उन पर भी नज़रसानी की जा रही है। बिजली की कीमतों में वाज़ेह कमी की गई है। 2-3 साल से बिजली की तलब में कमी भी आई है। उन्होंने कहा कि शमसी तवानाई की पैदावार में खासा इजाफा हुआ है। अगले 3 सालों में ग्रिड से फराहम करने के लिए वाफर बिजली भी मौजूद है। शमसी तवानाई का ज़रिया हैरान कुन है।
To the sector in the past because of bad planning and